Welcome to Fearless Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 93.
Yeah, back in the studio. We had to give the underground bunker a little rest.
That's right. I totally forgot we were there for the last episode.
That's right.
I do like that. You know, it's kind of cool. Like, I think the day that the economy crashes, that's where we should do our episode. Hopefully we're still doing the podcast by then.
Yeah, that's right.
That sounded so... What a bad way to start the podcast. Just doom and gloom.
Yeah. I don't know though. Like, again, I'm not a financial expert by any means, but I can say that based off of the current, the way things are going, like I'm not a bull is the term that things are just going to keep going up, but things are not shrinking as fast as they thought it would shrink. There has been some shrinks, but yet there's still growth in job markets and other things. So it looks like it might be like kind of a nice level dip and then maybe up again, right? So we might not be looking at like, oh, everything is bottoming out crash, which, is good in a lot of ways. Might not be so good if we were hoping to be able to buy a house for pennies on the dollar. But at the same time, it is going to be nice if we, everybody gets to keep their jobs and the economy dips but doesn't crash.
Well, yeah, and on the reselling side, there's pluses on both sides, right? Economy doesn't crash. You can keep selling items you usually couldn't sell if the economy was down. Right. A lot of the, whether it's the hype stuff or whether it's luxury stuff where it's like vintage gear that's just cool to wear, But the other side is, if you have a lot of inventory that's things that people need, like economy going down, be nice, So
I like that shirt. Is that like a...
No, it's not NASA. It's just a shirt.
Oh, nice.
I just like wearing my shirts here and there. So, I thought I'll wear something brighter today.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm dark over here with my dark shirt, and you've got a nice, bright white shirt over there.
Well, anyways, what I don't even know we were talking about fashion here. I was just talking about clothing for eBay, but
hey, this makes riveting podcasting when you talk about the clothing that you're wearing.
Riveting podcasting.
That's right.
I don't know if riveting's the word for that though. So
it's fine.
So hey, but you know what? If you haven't had a chance, you can still catch us on YouTube. Hey, and actually, people that catch us on YouTube get to see our bearded mugs. Somebody had commented that we look the same. I don't know. Is it just because we're bald and we're bearded?
Yeah, I think, what? I almost feel like that's just a stereotype that all bald, bearded men look the same. But you know what? It's fine.
It's probably true.
We can tell the difference. So.
No, there is a difference. There's a big difference. And I'm joking. All right. Hey, so we're dropping this episode, and I think it's like right before Q4 really begins to crank. Not full crank, kind of like, if you look at your RPMs in your car, right? We're not at red yet. We're kind of, is it yellow that hits before the red?
Yeah, I mean, typically that would be what I would expect.
Whatever color it is,
it's
right?
Warming up.
It's warming up. And so I thought it'd be a great time to talk about being strategic in the midst of Q4.
I like that. Well, especially because I am the worst hosts on this as far as having a lot of knowledge. We've talked about it in the past, like, I'm not the expert, obviously, when it comes to retail arbitrage or especially not Amazon and FBA. And I know that's a big part of Q4. But last year I did pretty good on Q4 doing a little bit of retail arbitrage through eBay. But a lot of the things that were kind of my bread and butter, I don't even want to call them hot items because I didn't get like the great bolos, a few of them. But some of the things that were working for me last year that I was kind of anticipating this year, they're just not there.
They're gone.
They're gone. Yeah. So now I need to pivot, right? And so I was thinking about it this morning. I was kind of like, man, well, I'm looking at my eBay numbers. I'm like, they're doing good, and as long as they don't dip, but I just don't think I'm going to have that, 200% increase over, the rest of the months. But then I was like, man, I'm being really negative, and I haven't even been in store scanning yet. So I just need to kind of switch gears. And that's a big part of it too, is kind of just switching gears and prepping up for that switch and that change. If you're already an Amazon FBA seller, there's a little bit of a change for you. I'm sure in some ways a big change, but for somebody like me, who's mostly just doing eBay, thrift stores, garage sales, I've got to completely shift my model if I want to capitalize on Q4.
No, I agree. And the key thing is, and this is the first thing I wanted to talk about, is like what to prepare. And we already had a whole episode of prepping for Q4, but there's kind of like this second stage of preparation right before things crank, right? By this time, you should have all your shipping supplies. By this time, you should have your store at a certain level, like of inventory to make sure things that our people are buying. Actually, sales are coming in. Like I've noticed. I mean, it's only November. Today's November 4th, and it's November 6th. Where am I? Okay, and this episode it's not even November. When this episode drops, it's gonna be November 13.
Yep,
something like that. Whatever that Wednesday is, and so sales are definitely picking up because what happens is people are waiting, for Halloween to be over, and as soon as Halloween's over, all the Christmas stuff starts coming up.
Well, and I wasn't even really thinking about Black Friday until I was at Salvation Army today. On my way here, I had like a half hour that I could kill, and so I was like, I'm just going to jump into Salvation Army really quick. And they handed me, when I was checking out, or actually maybe it was yesterday, I don't know, but they handed me a Black Friday coupon. And I'm like, Black Friday, man, they are like way in advance. I'm like, oh wait, not really.
It's not that far.
It's not.
I mean, and by the time this episode drops, it's only about 2 weeks away.
Yep.
The crazy thing is, by the time this episode drops, I've already picked up my rental van for 3 days to source for FBA. Like that's how close we are.
You know what you need to do? We need to, as Pure Hustle Podcast, we need to make big magnet decals that we could just slap on the side of the van. And that way when you're on your trip, it's like the Pure Hustle Podcast.
No, I don't want people to know where I'm going. Or like, I mean, think about it. Like if somebody wanted to target my van, that van must be full of inventory. It's Pure Hustle Podcast.
That's true.
I mean, none of our listeners would ever do something like that.
So then what you should do is you should just like get a decal that says something plumbing, and then in parentheses underneath, there's not expensive inventory in this van. Don't break into it.
Yeah, I'm sure that would work.
It might.
Okay. All right. So first thing, all right, to understand in the strategic, I wanted to use the word strategery. Is that a real word, Mike?
I don't think so, but maybe.
We're going to make it up right now. Okay, let us know in the comments. All right, is that you need to understand the platforms and miss the Q4. You need to be able to pivot. Okay, and this is what I mean. So there are going to be certain items that actually are going to make more money on eBay than they are on Amazon. I know that sounds weird because everybody's the go-to about Amazon. But here's the thing. If you didn't get, I would say not ungated, but there was this process to be merchant fulfilled on Amazon, right? So you had to have a certain amount of sales, and then it approved you that, from November 1st until, I don't know, sometime in December, you could sell, let's say, certain toys or certain items merchant fulfilled. So what that means is sometimes I'll go into a store, and if there's an item that people want right away, I can actually scan it, list it on Amazon at that moment, and I might sell that item before I even pay for it. I wouldn't advise that because you never know what happens between you and getting to the counter. I've had it before where that's happened, and then they were unwilling to let me buy all the inventory that I was trying to buy.
Oh, yeah, that would suck. I was going to say that might be an interesting strategy if you don't have tons of capital, is literally make the Target or Walmart or whatever you're at your office and just push your cart around, go into the Starbucks that they have there inside, or the whatever little food court they have in your Walmart or Target, and as stuff sells, then go buy it. And until it sells, keep it in your cart. Now, do I suggest that? Absolutely not. But you never know. That might, if you're Amazon fulfilled or merchant fulfilled. But this sounds to me a little bit, is this different for you this year? I know this is something we've heard a lot of people talk about. We've talked about in the podcast, the benefits of being merchant fulfilled, especially around this time. But last year, did you do merchant fulfilled very much?
I did not. I did zero.
Oh, there's a giant cricket climbing on the wall. That tripped me out.
Studio?
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, just makes the podcast more entertaining. Yeah. I thought it was going to be a bee, or it's just a cricket, man. Cricket.
I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and it looked like a giant spider. And so I was like, ooh.
This podcast. Okay. So, no, I did zero merchant fulfilled. 2 reasons why I did not do merchant fulfilled. Number one, I was ignorant. I'll just admit it. I remember when whenever I scanned things on Amazon Seller app, it said, this must be FBA. I didn't know what that meant. And I wasn't the only one. I had DM'd other resellers on Instagram, and they had no idea what that meant. Well, now we know. The other part was I believed that I didn't have the time to pack those items, that I would be losing money from FBA because I'd be diverting my attention. But the reality is, I'll never forget. So I'll give an example. Ryan's eggs. I'm throwing it out there because we already talked about that. That was one of the bolos. And on Black Friday, I picked up 100 golden Ryan's eggs.
I saw that. Yep.
And when I picked them up, they were going for about, I think it was like 101.64 merchant fulfilled, and there weren't that many FBA sellers. So I sent them all into FBA. By the time that Amazon had processed it, I think the price had gone down to like $60 to $70.
Yep.
Right. So when it's all said and done, I only was making 10 or 15.
Right.
If that night I had gotten merchant fulfilled, it would have been miserable, but it's possible I would have sold all of them for $100 that night. It would have been a long night of shipping. It would have been awkward because it's an awkward item, but I would have definitely had a lot more money in my pocket.
Yep.
So that's why I'm doing more merchant fulfilled. But I agree with you. Right now, it's kind of weird. I, by this time, knew some of the hot items, and I don't.
Yeah.
You know, and part of it is I haven't been researching, because here's what I want to say. You got to pivot platform. So one of the things that last year I wish I had done is I had looked at if items were selling just as much on eBay as they were on Amazon. Because Amazon takes a bigger cut than eBay. Yes, you're doing more work, but you know, a 30% cut is a lot worse than eBay's 13% cut.
Right.
Right. And if you're selling it for more money, right, that's a greater chunk of your money.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I mean. You need to be able to pivot. Or maybe you need to understand that at Mercari, there's not as many sellers selling a certain item. So maybe it's worth it to you to cross post and put on Mercari. And not saying you'll own the market, because everybody else will end up there too, but you'll be able to get a little bit more money for the item than if you were on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you could ship things faster. You could, right? If you send it to FBA, it's going to be a few days, right? So if you couldn't make merchant fulfilled, maybe it's worth it to you to go to eBay or to Mercari. But remember, there's always less buyers on those platforms. You have to understand there's less buyers. That's a big thing. I throw that out there because there's a lot of people saying, you know, oh, you shouldn't, you know, do eBay, you should go to Posh, or you shouldn't do Amazon. But remember, anytime you change to another platform, it changes the type of buyer and it changes how many buyers there are on that platform.
Yeah, that is true. There are fewer buyers. However, it's and somebody mentioned this before. Maybe it was Sell Quick, Ship Quick when we did our interview with them, but it's different buyers. Like you're getting sometimes there's a complete crossover. The same people who are on Amazon or on Poshmark. I think the better example would be eBay and Poshmark. Like, yeah, eBay is definitely a much bigger company with more buyers. However, there might be a whole market of Poshmark buyers who aren't even on eBay at all. So when it comes to acquisition of customers, there's a whole demographic you might not even be reaching. And so, yeah, there might be fewer of them, but you're not reaching them at all if you're not on there. So it's not just that like you're reaching the same ones, just not as much, but there's a whole group that you might not be getting. So yeah, it is, I think, important to realize that depending on your target market, and honestly, companies spend a lot of time doing market research, right? Figuring out where that target market is, where they're spending their time. And sometimes you can just kind of do the biggest pot is where or the biggest lake is where I'm going to fish because there's more fish in there. And sometimes it's like, well, but if the certain fish that I'm looking for is not in this lake, it doesn't matter how many there are, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you got to be wise about that. And we can't tell you what that is because especially if you're in like a specific niche, like if you're like, you know, specialty cosmetics or if you're a certain type of electronics or whatever it is, it might make sense to be on a different platform. So don't just jump in the biggest one, but the biggest one might be the best. So you gotta kind of figure that out.
Yeah, no. And one more example I'll give is last year, remember we were selling those dolls? I'm just going to throw out there because it doesn't matter anymore. But, you know, those dolls actually were more profitable for me to sell on eBay than on Amazon.
Yeah, and I only sold them on eBay.
Yeah.
They weren't the easiest things to ship, though, which you got to consider that, too, is and again, I have not sent in an Amazon FBA box, so I'm not an expert on this, but it seems to me a little easier to send a giant box that you can fit 4 of an item in rather than ship 4 of them out and have to find 4 boxes that'll fit this item.
And so that's the opposite, right? Because in that case, yes, more money was made, but, you know, I had, I don't know, like 125 of them.
Mm-hmm. You had to Frankenstein some boxes on some of those?
On some of those. So it took time. Yeah. It took time, right? But with the Amazon ones, it was a bear eventually. But yeah, it was easy. I remember I was able to use a 24 by 18 by 24 box and I could fit 8 of them, right? So if you did the math, it only took me about, I don't know, more than 10 boxes, shipped them off to the warehouse and I never had to worry about them again, right? So these are things you need to think about because, man, platforms, you know, they really do matter. It is an Amazon game. It is an eBay game, but You just don't know. You just don't know. And the other thing you also got to consider is when you're in store, I talk about merchant fulfilled, is some items, I took a picture of the item for eBay right in the store.
Nice.
And I would sell it within that day too. So at that time,
you should take the picture with like the sign of how much it costs there at Walmart in the background.
Yeah, but at that time, people know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if they're buying the high end, the hot toys, they know.
Yep.
Okay. Now, great thing that you're talking about supplies. So you need to be strategic in midst of Q4. And we already talked about being prepared with the supplies, but you got to understand it's not just having the supplies, but having those supplies ready. So for example, that one doll item, it required kind of a certain kind of box and a certain way of shipping. So if you knew you had those items and they were hot, you should have, and I don't know if you did that, but I had to do it. I had about 15 boxes ready to go, right? I took the time when there was a dead time. I, put those boxes together, and I knew it just took me literally 2 minutes to pack those items and send them off.
Yeah. Well, and I got lucky last year. There was a board game that I was selling. It was kind of an awkwardly shaped.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The wooden ones?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It was an awkwardly shaped, not awkwardly shaped, but like it was fragile, and like the way it was shaped, like just a regular box wouldn't work. And at a cafe that I saw in their dumpster, and it was the time my dumpster dived, they had all of these boxes of some kind of like meat that like, and the box opened up weird, and these slid right in, and there was like less than 1/4 of an inch all the way around that I was able to just stick a little bit of paper padding around, and it was like perfect. Like I think we had one break in the 50 that we shipped. And I was so glad I had those boxes, because if I didn't have them, I remember the first few that sold, I didn't have those boxes, and it was a nightmare, because it was like one box kind of worked, and then the next one sold and was like, oh, but then now I have to ship completely differently. And so, yeah, if you're able to buy multiples of something, it's worth spending the time to figure out what it's going to take to ship it and have those ready to go. Because if you start selling them quickly, you might have the packaging you need to ship 3 of them, and then you're Frankensteining a box for the 4th, and then 2 more sell, and you got to go out and buy stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a good idea to have that stuff ready and test it ahead of time, so that when you could be sourcing, you're not stuck out, trying to find
it's the worst.
Supplies.
Trying to get shipping supplies while you're sourcing, whether it's the worst, because you lose a lot of time, right? Because you got to remember, other people are trying to get supplies, and I can't tell you how many times during Q4 I needed a certain box and I couldn't find it, and I spent 45 minutes to an hour going to another Walmart or another Walmart. So it's definitely not worth it to you. Also, make sure that you're shipping the same day. I know a lot of you do 1 day shipping, like one business day, or you do more than that. But during Q4, people want their stuff quick. And to separate yourself from the crowd, and remember, a lot of people discuss, whether there's an algorithm, right? The algorithm is real. It exists. eBay has told us. And so if it's in the midst of, now maybe eBay's conspiracy, but if in the midst of Q4, the algorithm is kicking and those buyers, this is one thing we didn't share. We haven't shared this yet. Remember we talked about how if you have a certain item, you drop the price, so you constantly sell that item, and then eBay pushes your item up higher in the search because you're that person?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. The concept we had behind that was, let's say you were able to buy, and we've talked about Uno cards for other reasons, but I'll just use that as an example. Let's say you were to buy 100 packs of Uno cards, right? And you put them in, and you have the quantity 100, sell the first 10 where you're taking a loss, right? It's super cheap. And so people are buying them quick. And then the next 10, raise the price up so you're breaking even. And then you can raise the price even more. And what it's going to do is you're going to be up at the top, and it's going to already say 27 sold, only however many remaining. And people, I think part of it is it's going to be higher up on the list. And the other thing is, I feel, because I'm the same way when I buy stuff, is do you trust the person you're buying it from? And if you could see like, oh man, they've already sold 27 of these. They already have good reviews. People are saying they're getting there on time and it's a great product, versus the person who has a one-off. I might be willing to spend an extra $1 or $2 for an item if it's like, well, this seems like a reputable dealer. The other one, not so sure.
Yeah. So definitely that's huge strategy for Q4, right? That's something I implemented last year. I took a loss on one item over and over again. And man, it was weird because I wasn't the best price, but I was getting sales in comparison to the one-offs because people had seen all the ones I sold already.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good. Now, the other thing is you got to understand, I know, and we go back and forth about free shipping and free returns, but in Q4, that's a big deal, right? Because if you're the one, if you have, let's say, I'm going to keep using Ryan's Edge. Let's say there's Ryan's Edge, right? And eBay gets flooded and there's about 200 sellers, right? And Amazon is flooded, right? What is going to separate you from everybody else, right? It's going to be the free returns. It's going to be free expedited shipping. It's going to be your price point. It's going to be your pictures. You need to use all that to your advantage. It's very different than if you have, let's say, a starter jacket and, there's 8 other sellers selling the same one, but you have better pictures. And that might just be the difference. When it comes to these hot toys, some people are just going to use stock photos and they're going to offer free shipping and free return. And that's going to be enough. Yep. So you have to make sure if there's ever a time that you got to be willing to give a little to get that sale, it's during Q4.
Yep, I can see that.
So any disagreement on that one?
Yeah, I disagree with you.
Okay.
Because I can't. No, I'm just kidding. Right. I agree.
Okay, now, the other part, and this is kind of interesting. This is a new one that I'm introducing that we haven't shared for in previous Q4 episodes.
Frivolous.
You need to have an inner circle. Your own Bellow group.
Oh. Is Pure Hustle Podcast
promoting? Yes. We're opening up. First 100 to sign up at $1,000 a pop are in.
Yeah. And
I'm just joking. No, we're not doing that. But I think it's super helpful. And because here's the thing.
So define inner circle. How many people are we talking?
It depends on what you're comfortable with. For me, it's 5. It's you. And there's 3 other people.
Gotcha.
And that's it. And they have to be, but here's the reason why, right? So a couple of the people that are within this inner circle aren't in the same geographic region as I am.
Yep. That's big.
Right? That's huge because we're not competing against each other, right? So they're, hey, Orlando, I came across this. You should see if you have it in your stores. I do vice versa. It's a win-win for both of us, right? The key thing is you don't let it out of your circle.
Yeah. And that's the hard part too. I mean, you hear, I guess the quote of the week is, right, like 2 people can keep a secret if one of them is dead, right?
I think we gave the same quote of the week for the last Q4 one.
Did we?
We did. Yeah. I played it because remember when I talked about we should listen to this again?
Uh-huh.
So I don't know, it's episode 35 or something. I could be wrong. But I re-listened to it to prep for this episode, make sure we weren't doing the same info. And yeah, that was your quote.
Really?
Yeah, that was funny. Your quote.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth to that with certain things. Because you have to think about this. Unless you have a blood pact with people and you were to say, because I don't network a lot outside of this, what we're doing with the podcast, right? So it's not like I have reselling friends that you don't have. But you got to imagine if you got an inner circle with 5, that one of those 5 people has another inner circle that you're not part of, and that there's another 3 people that they have kind of like and so things are gonna get out. Like even with a close inner circle, you just have to realize like at what point is it beneficial? At what point are you hurting yourself? And the key thing is you might not be competing geographically, but you might be competing at a race to the bottom. Now, the difference is when you're talking about something, if you find like the most random item that nobody else knows about and you're literally the only person in the country that's selling it,
which is probably never the case.
Right. But no matter what, if something is hot, that means lots of people are buying and selling. And if anybody's doing research, they're going to figure it out. Right. So eventually other people are going to be in the market. So the key is, can you get it? And then hopefully people aren't racing to the bottom, and chances of like me and you, if we're buying the same items, we're probably not racing each other to the bottom. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're talking about almost every reseller on Instagram is buying one item, now that changes things a little bit. So yeah, you just got to be careful. I think having an inner circle is good. You've definitely helped me out a ton with things to buy. And I hope I haven't been like crazy competition for you in that way,
No.
But it's very helpful and it's encouraging too. And I think one of the things too, sometimes as a reseller, you're okay with it being a lonely lifestyle. But sometimes, I mean, you might even be just listening to the podcast because it's nice to hear people who are doing the same things you're doing, right?
Even us.
Yeah. And so it's nice, I think, sometimes to know that you could be helping encourage somebody who might be struggling reselling. And it's like, hey, I was at Ross. They had this like plate set and there was a bunch of them. And maybe you could check your Rosses in your area. They might have it. And that might be the thing that keeps them going and gets food on their family's table. Right. And so there's something to be said about that. But of course, there's always limits. And I think most people are wise enough to know the difference of when it's like blasting it on Instagram and like, hey, buy this item, you know?
No, I get it. And so, this is obviously new and some people might disagree, but I think if you keep your circle small and it has to be people you trust, to me, it's people that I have actually encountered face to face. It can't be somebody that, I randomly know. Now, there are some great people out there that I have friendships with that I've never met. They're in the IG world. And we've actually shared stuff back and forth, but you have to be careful because, and I don't want to, we already had a whole episode about sharing, but you never know. All it takes is one person to enter another Bellow group that might have 100 to 200 members and say, hey, this is what I found. And you're going to put yourself in a very tough position. And you might not even know it, that you put yourself in a tough position.
Yep.
So, but anyways, I do recommend having an inner circle to be strategic in Q4. All right. Now, when do you hustle? Like when do you keep moving, right? That's one of the things
all day, every day.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
So, yes, that is correct. Q4, you cannot stop. You put that pedal down and you just keep moving and moving and moving and moving and moving till the wheels fall off.
Yeah, there's plenty of time to sleep when you're dead.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I hustled last year, but I still don't feel like I hustled enough.
Okay. I think there's some truth to that. And I don't mean to disagree with you. I worry even sometimes about you, honestly. Like you get into modes where, and I get like you're doing it, you want to make as much money as you could possibly make. But I do think there's a level where it's like you're hustling really, really hard and maybe to the detriment of your health, right? Like where you're just going. And whether it's sleep or whether it's mental health or whether it's nutrition or whether it's relationships or who knows, right? Like everybody has their own things. And so I think like we always talk about, you have to find what works for your lifestyle. And I don't want to put the idea out there that if you're not hustling, because I've had some people who, I've talked to about reselling, they follow us and sometimes they're like, oh my goodness, like when I see what you guys do, I'm like, there's no way I can do that. And that's okay. Like you might say, hey, I want to reap some of the benefits of Q4. I want to increase, have that 50% increase, but I also don't want to kill myself doing it, But then the other side of the coin is, hey, maybe that is what you have to do. And that is the lifestyle that you're going for. So yes, if making it to the top is what you want, you've got to hustle nonstop. Otherwise, you might increase your hustle 10% to get a 100% return during Q4. So you got to find what works for you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just the only, catch that I'll say is that the market doesn't stop for anybody, right? So if the market is hot, you have to strike when it's hot. And there is this peak time, I would say from Black Friday until about December 22nd, where the market is on fire. And actually, it's not even after Black Friday. It's about December 1. You should listen to that episode because one of the things we talked about, and we'll talk about this later, is that the market really takes off, but it doesn't really take off till about December. There's like this sweet spot of 2 weeks, right? And so what I mean is hustle the way through is even when things aren't on fire and you're not seeing crazy sales, you still need to keep hustling because it'll pay off. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like today, things have been kind of quiet and I haven't had a day where I sold 27 items on Amazon. It's been a few, October, I did have a few days, but now it's like, it's picking up and eventually it's going to get to the 100 and 200. And again, I'm a small scale Amazon FBA guy. Like I'm not even close to the big time resellers, but you do get into this feeling like, hey, I'm listing every day. I'm sourcing every day. I wonder if this is going to happen. It will, as long as you research things well, it will happen. It will. That's why I'm saying you just can't stop. And again, I do agree with Mike. You got to find what works for you. I know for me, I'd rather hustle hard like crazy for 6 to 7 weeks. So then January through May or June, I can do some traveling because I don't have to worry about finances, And so that's just kind of the exchange that you make at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seasonal hustle.
Yes. There's some people that make their yearly income in 6 weeks.
That's impressive.
I would love to do that. I don't know if I can do that, but
I even think about that sometime as a teacher. There's times where I'm like, it's not fair how much I have to work for the amount that I'm making, right? Like I'm putting in 12-hour days and then I have to lesson plan afterwards and then I have to grade. And then parents want to know why this one assignment that their kid turned in late hasn't been graded yet. But then I realize like, yeah, I'm working a lot more than 40 hours a week only while I'm working though. And then I get all summer off, right? And so kind of remembering that too, that you might increase the amount of work you're doing in the short term. But if you're thinking of this amount of work over, what you're actually making in a year, that helps you kind of keep things in perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's a hustle. Yeah. I mean, you're tired. I'm tired. I mean, I was packing till 3 a.m. last night, a shipment, but I mean, when you have a shipment that's going to make you about $400 an hour for 5 hours, it keeps you motivated. It's doable.
Cha-ching.
Well, hopefully, unless everything tanks. Ooh. All right. Now, the other thing, and this is common sense, but you need, if you're not sourcing every day, you need to list every day, right? Whether it's on eBay, whether it's on Amazon, because the velocity of sales that are coming in, right? And again, eBay, like if you're doing eBay, and again, we've already shared this, that most of the stuff that really sells for good money is new with tag stuff, hot items. But there are a lot of vintage items that people want that special gift during Christmas. So I say keep listing. Now, if you're an Amazon person, you understand, like source every day, send in,
yeah,
and just keep sending until, for me, I think my cutoff date this year is probably going to be maybe December 12th. I'm going to start slowing down. Because I've talked about,
am I even going to have a friend during that period?
No.
Am I going to be able to be like,
yes.
Hey, Orlando, let's go get some coffee?
Yeah, we don't do that now. But yeah, you will. You will. But here's the thing. You got to be aware, and I've shared this on our Instagram story, and I think I shared this on the 2 podcasts ago. But with the 1-day shipping, you got to understand that I think things are going to take a lot longer to get processed because they're going to send from one warehouse to the other. That's why I'm saying ship out stuff every day. Don't wait 2 or 3 days to have a shipment together because your stuff may not make it on time. But now that it's mid-November, it's going to get the timeline gets pretty tight. Yeah. So, all right. And here's the other one. And when I listened to this episode from back in the day, like 9 months ago.
Hey, that was the infancy of the podcast.
So talk to me about stuff that's sold in your store. Would you say you had, and this is kind of like the exact same conversation we had, but maybe we'll have nuances here. Would you say that stuff that you weren't able to sell sold?
Well, for last year, for sure. And I don't remember exactly all the things that I sold. But I do remember distinctly thinking, hey, this is a lot of like random collectible stuff, whether it was like the most oddball mug or like a weird statue or, some strange vintage pin or things that like have been sitting for a long time. Things were selling during Q4. And I do think it was because, we've talked about people tend not to want to buy used clothing as gifts unless maybe it's vintage, like that might work. Like if you're talking about like a vintage starter
collectible, vintage collectible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the thing though that people will buy used for gifts are collectibles, right? So when you're talking about, and there's collectibles when you think of like, okay, baseball cards and that kind of stuff. But then there's like, people are into different hobbies, right? And like, if you've ever been to an estate sale, like one thing that I always feel when I walk into an estate sale is sometimes it's just odds and ends stuff. But a lot of times you walk into a house and you're like, oh my goodness, this person was obsessed with Coca-Cola, or this person was obsessed with Disney, or this person was obsessed only with Coca-Cola Disney crossover stuff. And literally everything in their house is that. And so those types of people, we all know those kinds of people. Like growing up, my mom really liked like carousels. She had carousel horses. And so gifts that she got all the time, like people knew she liked carousels. So she'd get random carousels. And a lot of times they weren't new. It was like, hey, I was at this flea market and I found this carousel. And so those became gifts. And so if you can think of like, what are the things people are into that, like, hey, this person really likes, I don't know, poodle statues or whatever, usually you only get that stuff for people as gifts, and Christmas and birthdays are the times that happen. And so Christmas is going to be a big one for those types of things. So that might not sell all year long, but if you know that like, hey, there's a niche market out there where people are into this stuff, those are the kind of things that sell. So you might not be picking up those things throughout the year because they don't sell. And the hard part with those is a lot of times there's not comps, right? And there's only comps during that Q4 time to look at. And so that's when you got to use things like Terapeak and stuff to see like, are these things selling? Or just use your judgment and say, this, I know people who are into this kind of stuff. And so I'm going to pick it up and hope that it sells Q4 time. Whereas, your used clothing, that might drop off. So if you've got weird stuff that's been sitting in your inventory that you haven't listed, it's probably a good idea to get that stuff listed. And if you have it listed and it hasn't sold, might be the time to get some movement on it, right? Change the price a little bit, run a sale on it, or throw it up as an auction, because if you can get people, eyes are on those things more now than they are other times during the year.
Agreed. And you brought about a good point. A great point is that Terapeak is something you definitely should be using right now. And you should see, okay, how much did items sell in November and December in comparison to the rest of the year, right? Because you might look at your inventory and you might see items that you may have priced too low, or maybe you have it priced too high, right? But it gives you 365 days of data with an eBay store subscription. So
that's good.
So check it out. Man, I am fumbling on words today. Sell.terapeak.com. Okay. So the other thing is, even on Amazon, right? If there's ever a time, and a lot of people talk about January, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But if there's things that have been sitting on Amazon and you've been holding out, this may be the time to just let that stuff fly off the shelf.
Yep.
Right? Because indirect stuff, and Amazon has an algorithm just like eBay. It likes to see sell-through. It likes to see items being sold. So what I find, and I've shared this before, is when I have a bunch of items that have been sitting on my Amazon inventory for about 5 months or 6 months, if I lower it and I begin to sell a lot of them, all these other items that haven't sold either that were around the same time will begin to sell too. And I can't explain it. It's just, it happens.
Now, does that work for eBay in the sense of you've got something that maybe has had 600 views, nobody's bought it yet, and it's been up for a year, 2 years, something like that. Is it worth going through, finding those items and taking the pictures off, taking the listing down, relisting it so that you don't have that massive like views versus buys? Or does that not really make a difference?
There's two views on that. I mean, I would not take the pictures and the listing down. You can either keep it up, which keeping it, according to eBay, right, keeps you high in the Google search, right? It keeps your watchers, it keeps your views, it keeps all the info. If you take it down, that all goes away. The way to refresh that listing is to do sell similar, right? So
but then would you have two of them?
No,
listed?
so you end the listing, right? You just end it, and then you go back to that listing and you go to sell similar, and then you just, everything's already populated for you, and then you just make it go live.
Okay.
Right? But it gives it a brand new item number, and maybe it'll put it higher up in the search. But there's two sides to that one. A lot of people do that. I know Craigslist Hunter does that with his stuff. That's one of the things he talked about. Once eBay went to good till canceled back in March, they were doing that, and it affected their sales. I didn't do it. I ended up doing a little more promoted listings and realizing that if I accepted lowball offers every once in a while, my sell-through rate would increase. So that works for me. So you got to find what works for you.
Speaking of promoted listings, I've noticed recently a lot more of my sales are coming through promoted listings. So I wonder if there's been some kind of change in eBay marketing, if they're pushing it more.
Or maybe that's the only listing, like the other listing doesn't show up.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely possible, but I've been noticing like, oh, this sold. Ooh, sold through promoted listing. Oh, this sold. Oh, sold through promoted listing. A lot of stuff selling that way. So yeah, I don't know whether to be happy about that or if I should be upset.
I think it's the other way. I think that's the only one that's showing. I mean, because they did say only one's going to show. And I mean, if you're running a business, which one are you going to choose to show? You're going to choose to show the ones that can make you more money.
True.
I can't diss eBay for that. I mean, that's business. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But that's business. So.
I wish they would show you, like, does it sell through promoted listing on like through the search? Like, are they searching for the item and they just see it? Or is it selling, like, how sometimes you're on Instagram or Facebook and there's like eBay recommended items based off of your like
How they spy on
browser
you.
history, what you've looked at before. I wish there was a way they could say like this sold through Instagram. So you would know like, oh, that money is really worth it.
I don't know. I wonder if, I'm sure it does, but I don't see a lot. Do you see stuff like from eBay on Instagram?
All the time.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't. Ever.
When I'm going, do you go through the feed very much?
Of course. I'm on there all the time.
When I go through the feed, I'm always seeing like, and it draws my attention every time. It's like, oh, that is the coolest thing. And I'm like, oh, it's an eBay ad. But it's like some kind of Dungeons and Dragons miniature collection or some kind of, I'm like, ooh, what is this? Oh, somebody's selling. I'm like, oh, it's an eBay ad. But there's like always like 10. You can keep sliding through and it's like 10 kind of similar items in a certain.
I've never seen that.
Oh,
That's
all the time.
That's strange.
I see it all
good.
the time.
So going back to what we were saying, have every single item that you can list listed. All of it. Leave nothing behind.
So you're advocating no more inventory reserves?
No, and I'll share that. That's part of my hustle of the week. Is this is not the time for inventory. This is list every single item, because again, you never know. And if there's ever a time that there's going to be eyes on your item, it's going to be now.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, so let's take a quick break. If you haven't had a chance yet, make sure to follow us on social media. We are Pure Hustle Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Hey, and again, thank you all of you coming over to TikTok. Thank you all of you on Facebook that are sticking with us. I know it's been taking a little while for us to get back to you. I feel really bad. We'll post something and it takes like a day or two. Sometimes I'm covering the mic, but 2 weeks.
Don't rub it.
I know. 2 weeks to get back to you. So we apologize for that. It's just, we get so much activity on Instagram from DMs and stuff that it occupies your time. But we are Pure Hustle Podcast on all three of those platforms.
We are Pure Hustle Podcast.
We are Pure Hustle Podcast. And we're also Pure Hustle Cast on Twitter. So, and our Twitter is growing. Like, thank you all of you that started following us.
To follow us. It's kind of cool.
Twitter's a hard one to gain growth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like anything. You have to be active in it, and you can only be extremely active in so many things. So, again, I just so our listeners know, we're mostly active in Instagram. So that's where you're going to get the most content. You're going to get the most feedback. It's going to be quicker. It's more responsive for us. So, but we want to continue growing these other ones and kind of figure out, because it's just like we talked about platforms with reselling. It's different platforms for social media, and there's totally different people. You might be missing lots of strategies and tips and ideas because you're only on one social media platform in reselling groups, right? If you're only in Facebook groups, you might be missing the stuff on Instagram or on Twitter or on YouTube, right? So you kind of got to dabble a little bit in each and kind of figure out where you're getting the most value at.
Should we be on LinkedIn? I've pondered that. Our last interview with Matt Klein,
really like a social media.
Matt Klein posts stuff on there, and I'm like, why are we on there? No, it is. The reach is pretty big. But anyways, this isn't a social media podcast. But yes, you can follow us wherever you want. And we are on YouTube. So if you're listening to the podcast, we haven't dropped anything. We drop our PHP clips, but we do plan to drop some new content. We've just been kind of busy with reselling and everything else going on. In Q4, yeah. But we definitely, that's something we want to step up in. But it all depends. If we keep growing, hopefully we'll be able to, through sponsorships and all, have more time to create more content. Yeah,
and more content is easier as we continue to get good feedback from you guys. The couple of things that help a lot, there's a link down below if you want to give us just like a donation through PayPal. That's huge. That helps us out. When we get those kinds of donations, it makes it easier for us to make that kind of content, right? Because it costs time and energy to do. Even stuff like, we recently bought new lens and we bought new sound equipment, and all that stuff costs money. So your support there helps. So we really
have to buy some apps too.
Yeah, and to buy little things.
It's just crazy.
Think about. So we appreciate that. And then the other thing too is, and it's so huge. I cannot stress enough. And you guys get how big algorithms are. iTunes is a monster, and it is huge. But it's also like eBay. It's got its own algorithm that it uses. And the number one way that we can get bigger reach and that we can reach more people is reviews in iTunes. So if you can leave us a review, obviously, click all 5 stars and we're going to smile the biggest. If you want to type something, that'd be great. We read all of them, I promise. And every time we read them, it's like it gives us motivation to keep going. But even if you don't want to take the time to type something, just leave us some stars. We truly appreciate it. It helps. And then we're planning in the future of, finding ways to thank all of you who are doing that. So it means a lot to us. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and we're at about 169 reviews on iTunes. It'd be awesome if before our next theme episode, we could get to 200.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
So if you haven't checked, even if you just drop the 5 stars, that'd be awesome. So let's see if we can make it happen.
Yeah. Please be part of that. You can be part of something huge and help us get to 200.
Pure Hustle Podcast.
Yeah. We're talking like
taking 30, over the podcast airwaves.
We're talking 30 reviews, right? Like that's not
31, Mike, 31.
I said like is that math term that you can use for like estimated.
All right. Okay.
But anyways, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
So now it's time for something special.
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah.
So is that going to be a PHP staple?
Yeah, man.
Like it's staying forever.
Yeah, it's canon now.
It's canon. It's PHP canon. I love it. All right. So we got some awesome hustle of the week. Thank you guys all that are sharing on the hashtag. And so I like these. The ones we chose, these were kind of unique. And so I'm looking forward to what we're going to share here. So Mike, go ahead.
All right. So our first one comes from Autumn. The IG handle is @diamond.punk. Love that.
That's a sweet name.
Super awesome. Went to the store that shall not be named. Doom, doom, doom.
I love how that's caught on. Have you noticed that?
That's awesome.
Even Matt Klein in the last interview called it the store that shall not be named.
I know. That's so cool.
So if the store that shall not be named wants us to say their name, they have to sponsor us.
Yeah. It's kind of like marketing for them, right? Like we're giving them lots of credit by rebranding them. All right. Anyways, it goes to the store that shall not be named, and it's a 50% sale, which not around here. But anyways, I'm glad that you had one. And found it, and now I'm gonna butcher the name. Is it Hermes?
No, it's Hermes.
Hermes.
Hermes. It's from France.
Picked up an Hermes scarf and paid $2. That sounds pretty good. I'd pay $2 for a good scarf.
You know how hard it is to find a scarf? Let alone, and I mean not scarf, you see them, but an Hermes scarf.
An Hermes scarf.
I've been on the hunt forever. I never find it.
I need to look up the logo so I know what that is. So an Hermes.
It's like a carriage.
Scarf. I like it. It sounds very fancy. And if there's probably like all of our listeners are like, Mike is so dumb. How does he not know that that's a great brand?
Oh, how would you know unless you know?
Yeah, well,
reselling's all about you don't know what you don't know.
It's true. So paid $2 for it and sold it for $150 on Poshmark. Holy smokes, that's amazing. So you had to pay that 20% fee, but it's shipped for free for you at least. So that's exciting.
Anytime you can find something for $2 and flip it for over $100. That's a major home run.
Yeah, that's what it's great when you can find 100 of an item that you're going to make 5 or 10 or 15 bucks on. That's great. Like that's how you scale. But when you find an item that you're paying a couple dollars for, like I'll never forget my big sales like that. Like my Apple hat, that calculator that I had,
how much did you sell that calculator for? 400?
It was like $375.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think I paid $5 for it. Like those sales. That's why you do this. Like whenever somebody's asked, like, what I do and I try to explain it, I don't tell them about, like I had my garage full of a doll that I was making some money on and I had 40 of them. And I said, that's boring. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It sounds like a lot of work. But when it's like, I bought this calculator for $5 and I sold it for $375. People are like, what? You can do that? And that's the stuff that's exciting. So great job on that. I'm going to be looking for some Hermes.
Autumn must have a great story. I was at the store that shall not be named and I found an Hermes scarf for $2 and I sold it for $150. Thank you, Autumn, for sharing with us. That is an awesome hustle of the week. Instagram, diamond.punk.
Yeah.
All right. So next one. Okay. This is the first. Now there's another person that we did do a repeat hustle of the week, but this was such a good hustle of the week that I feel bad. Like this is back-to-back theme episodes that Upstate Picker has a hustle of the week, but it's legit. So Jordan, Upstate Picker on Instagram, found. Now, let me start part of the story. Waited in line with 40 people at an estate sale. Those are the worst. Have you gone to an estate sale where there's a line or there's a sign-in sheet?
Yep.
I do not like those.
Not good.
I get anxiety and major FOMO at those.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like it. But, it can be prof. So he does. He goes, went over to a pole barn. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, explain. I'm a city kid. I have no idea what that is.
I mean, I think I know what it is. It's like now I'm sounding like an idiot. So I remember when I was
looking up.
No, when I was looking up sheds, when I was trying to like figure out for where we're at right now, and we're not in the shed that we were planning on doing. But pole barns are types of sheds that you can build, or like barns that you can build.
Okay.
So I'm assuming I've looked through so many of them, so I wouldn't be able to describe exactly the specifics of what make it. But a lot of times, I mean, I know there's some of them that are even like metal that kind of look like it, but it's like just the traditional building that's like, big shed building thing.
I'll read you the definition from the internet. Pole barns are a type of post-frame construction technique used for centuries to quickly construct sturdy, reliable structures. Post-frame construction is a highly engineered solution that combines efficiency and adaptability.
Yeah, we're city boys. We don't know what a barn is here.
So anyways, him and a few other individuals decided to go there. First thing he sees when he walks in is it may be the holy grail of Walkmans. I mean, there's a handful of them. Picks it up. It's a professional Walkman WM-D6C in working condition. Doesn't have everything with it, like the manual and the headphones and all that. Picks it up. Pays $4 for it. And I think this sold pretty fast. Sold for $380.
It's the best, man. That's just like we said earlier, keeps you going. And if you're not a thrifter, if you're not out thrift hunting and garage sailing and all of that, I get it that maybe it's not worth your time if you've got a big operation going, but there is not much like the joy you get with that. Like, it really is like a treasure hunt. Like, I imagine like the people who are out, panning for gold, and there were some that were very successful and some spent their whole life and they never got anything. But I feel like the nice thing is if you do it consistently, if you're going to thrift stores on a regular basis, these sales are not that uncommon. You are going to get these kinds of sales every so often. And when you do, it's just like a great feeling. It's like what I'd imagine winning the lottery is like, except
it's not
like a million times less, literally.
But it's still good.
But
hey,
good.
$380, that's pretty good. I mean, that's way more than pretty good.
Yeah.
A lot more, a ton more. So, hey, great job, Jordan at Upstate Picker. And if you have another awesome hustle of the week, we're going to have a moratorium on having you as a hustle of the week.
Yeah. You can just have your own like section.
Sorry, but you've had you had the electronic tubes. He's the electronic tubes guy from the last podcast. So legit. Great job, Jordan. Love that Walkman. If you haven't had a chance, check out Under Hustle of the Week. It's there. It's unassuming. It's very unassuming. All right. What's the next one here?
So our next one comes from Caleb, IG handle @Phoenix Resale. So responded to a Facebook marketplace post about a guy who had a shed full of retro video games. That's a good feeling, right? Like, especially if you're the first one to see it and get a hold of him.
But he wasn't.
So other collectors got a hold of him, but bought out about $900 worth of stuff for $100. So he wasn't the first one there. Other people got there, but he still was able to get like $900 worth of stuff.
Marketplace.
It's I don't want to say it's the new thing because that makes it sound really late to the game.
We are late to the game.
But it is. Like, I mean, I've sold a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace. It's been great. Like, the nice thing is, like, when you put something up on Craigslist, for instance, and I know we sound very antiquated talking about Craigslist, but it's like you post it, and if it doesn't sell within a couple of days, you got to repost it, and if it doesn't sell, like, you got to like start all over, right? Facebook Marketplace is probably as similar. Like, you want to keep posting things. I think you have to wait a week before you can post the item again or like refresh it. But there's things that I posted like 6 or 7 months ago and kind of forgot about it, and I still get offers on the regular for those items. Sometimes they're lowball offers. And now that I've moved, like, I'll get offers that I like. I'm like, yeah, but I'm a little further away now. And then it doesn't end up working out, like schedule and stuff. But Facebook Marketplace it's great. And it sells like for a lot of big things too. Like, couches, furniture, whatever. Facebook Marketplace, if you're not using it, check it out. But I haven't used it for smaller stuff, but it looks like it works for that too. So anyways, buys $900 worth of stuff for $100. Spend some time separating out stuff that's working versus stuff that's going to just be for parts. And there's still a lot of times you can make pretty good money just for parts items. Anyways, listed 8 broken, and I love the way it describes it here. Crusty.
I added the crusty. Oh. If you look at the picture, so this is Caleb Phoenix Resale on Instagram. If you look at the picture, they're crusty.
Yeah. I hope that's how you listed them on eBay. Crusty. averaged out to a total of $15 each and sold them for $140.
No, 15 for the 8.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's impressive.
Broken junk.
So were they allotted together as one sell?
Yeah.
So $15 to $140. Yeah, that's good. That's amazing.
And if you look at the picture, you're like, you probably would have passed these up.
Well, if you figure too, this person, so Caleb says he spent $100. This stuff averaged out to 15. So he made his money back and more and has only sold a fraction of what they bought.
Correct.
That's impressive. So great job, Caleb.
Seriously. And that's I always say this. Your goal at every thrift store and garage sale morning or estate sale is at one item. Your goal, not saying it will always happen, but your goal should be that one should pay for it all.
Yeah, that's always great.
One to pay for the haul.
Yeah, it's like a Lord of the Rings reference there. One sell to pay for them all.
Okay. Maybe it's a shirt, another shirt.
Yeah.
We have all these, we need to be on Amazon merch. We have all these shirt ideas and we have not dropped any of them.
we need, I know we have to have a few listeners out there that have got to be like creative with like design. Send us
we have
designs.
somebody. I got to talk to you after the podcast.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Go. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
So my hustle of the week is a year delayed. So do you remember those trains I talked about? So
you talk about them a lot.
I know I do. Okay.
That you don't list, that you've cleaned up and thought about listing a few times.
About a year and a half ago, I had a major haul. I paid $260 for a bunch of vintage Lionel trains and freight cars and tracks. Now, I picked them all up and I thought they were really cool. So I struggled listing them. I kind of kept them as, I liked them. Now, I sold a set of tracks for $120. I had a bunch of tracks. And I still have like I have enough to make 4 other listings of the same and make that same amount. So I sold one. I sold a Transformer for $60. That's $180. I sold a couple other pieces. Basically, I made all my money back, but I didn't list anything else. So even before I prefaced this episode, I talked about this in the other podcast. I was trying to get to 2K listings. Well, the other day, I said, you know what? It's time to list these bad boys. So what ended up happening is I found some pieces that were broken and I found some pieces that were in great condition. So I'm like, I'm going to list all of this. Even if it's broken, I'm going to list it. And here's what's crazy. So I'll share with you this one issue I had, which I'm just going to share this because I have a platform to talk about it. So I sold one thing, all right, for $65. I put in my listing that the box was worn. I accidentally didn't take a picture of the one side where the old sticker from the toy store was on there. The person messages me and goes, I bought this strictly for the box, but now there's a sticker on it. So I messaged them back and I said, well, it says the box is worn. So if you take the sticker off, the box is still worn. They didn't like my response.
Yeah, if there was no picture of it, I can see that.
But I said the box is worn.
But if you're going solely off of pictures and you're like, yeah, that wear is not too bad, I could see why there'd be some frustration.
All right. Well, anyways, I told them they asked for a partial refund. So I gave them an amount and they weren't happy with the amount I offered them. So I said, hey, you can return it for a full refund. Here's where it got weird. So I have automatic returns.
Mm-hmm.
eBay sent me a message that I had to purchase the label and send it to them. I'm like, what? So I call eBay and they're like, yeah, unfortunately, our system couldn't handle all the characters on the shipping address. No joke. This is what they told me. So I had to go to Pirate Ship, purchase a label, put my address, their address, purchase a label, save it as a PDF, and then I had to send it to them. That weird?
That's weird.
That was weird. So 2 things were weird. I had to take the return and I took it and the person already shipped it out today. But here's the thing. Let's get to the good side. I just wanted to share that. Just maybe some of you experienced that. I thought that was kind of strange. I hope that doesn't happen again. eBay, if the characters aren't fitting, like we got to make it happen. So I started listing like everything. And I just straight up put in the listing, missing pieces. This piece is broken. Stuff was selling, no joke, within 30 minutes. And it wasn't because I was selling it for too low, because my listing was higher than other people. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe because I had promoted listings. So I sold one thing. It was a Lionel Trains Marines rocket launcher. It was really cool. So think of this like green vehicle, and it had like 4 slots that you could put rockets that would fire. And it had a little blue man guy on the side. And it was supposed to have this kind of like this radar and everything. It was missing the blue guy, missing the radar, missing the missiles, had wear through it, missing other parts. Sold for $47 plus shipping.
Nice.
Then I sold another thing that was a flat car for a Mercury satellite, like from Cape Canaveral. It was missing pieces. Sold for $43.
I like it.
Then I sold another one. A flat car, missing pieces, $20. Another flat car, $20. Another part, $30. Another one, $40. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, what was I doing? I should have listed these back in the day.
Yeah.
But instantly, I mean, I shared on Instagram a few of the items that sold, but they just kept, and I have more to list tonight.
It's crazy.
So I'm excited. So anyways, that is my hustle of the week. Don't sleep on broken train parts, I guess, because depending on the brand, depending on the certain type, like there's money there.
And sometimes people want them for parts for like, because theirs is broken and they just need like one piece. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So, yep.
Correct. And so I want to add, did I share about the trains I almost threw away and then somebody messaged me and said they wanted to buy them? I did.
Yeah. I think
so they never got back to me. So I'm going to list them all as a lot, and maybe I'll share that later on. Yeah. So that is my hustle of the week.
I like it. All right. So mine, I've got a really quick one that's kind of small, and then another one that's also small. But the quick one is, and this is just an encouragement, because we've talked a lot about building relationships. And I've got a new job now. I'm working at a different school. And whenever you're new at a place, you're always trying to fill out the waters, and you don't want to be, that guy anywhere. And I noticed that, I'd walk through the office sometimes and they'd be getting shipments, and they'd, have boxes and some air pillows and stuff like that. And I'm still new. And so I'm not, don't want to step on any toes. But then as I'm starting to get to know some people, and I'm like, what, I'm just going to do it. So I went up to them and I'm like, hey, like, would you mind just saving these for me? Like if nobody's taking these boxes, like if you set them aside in the air pillows, like I'll take them. And they were actually, the office staff was like excited about it. They're like, oh, that's great. It takes so long to pop all these air pillows. Like we'd love to give them to you. And so now I've got this like,
that's awesome.
This constant coming in, and it's not always. There might be several days or weeks before more of them come. But it's like, hey, we got some more air pillows. We got some more boxes, and so that just made me think like, what? That was really easy to do, and I genuinely believe they weren't just being nice of like, yeah, we'll save them for you. We'd love to. Oh man, this stinks. But they really were like, yeah, this is a great idea. Like recycling. We're glad that we're not just throwing them away. And so I'm thinking, what? I need to get some business cards that is just for, I don't know, might even just say like, boxing and whatever, air pillow recycling, and just go to places like go to Targets, go to mom and pop shops and say like, hey, like if you want to, like, here's a Google Calendar, put on there like a certain time, and I'll come by once a week and pick up whatever you have. And that's a good way of it's a hustle, right? Because that's money you're not spending.
You're making money. Yeah. I mean, you're saving money.
Which is making money. Yeah. So that's a good one. And then I remember, I think it was last episode or last update episode, I talked about the signs as the Bellow.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Sold.
Nice.
Yeah. And we got $70 for it, paid $5 for it, and it was beat up. Like it was not like a sharp, crisp sign. So this is my hustle of the week, because I almost left that garage sale without getting it. I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and it was like, oh, I'm going to go back out and ask. I went and asked. I didn't even know what kind of sign it was. Walked back to my car because I left my phone in the car.
Nice.
Researched how much they're worth. And so I literally went into my car and back out twice before I bought it, before I even asked a price. So I feel like I lost all negotiating ability there, and I still was able to pick it up. I think I actually got it for $4 and sold it for $70. So, and
plus ship.
Yeah. And I thought it was going to be hard to ship, or not hard, but I was thinking like, oh, box. But honestly, because of the type of it's a flat sign, you literally don't just take a box and don't open it up. Just slide it into the box and then tape it. Right? Like, so it's easier thing to ship than you would think, something flat like that. So
what I do is I just bubble wrap it.
Yep.
And then you just find 2 pieces of cardboard
and
and just tape it together.
Yep, exactly.
You're good to go. So it's really true. If it's something that's flat, it seems scary because it's bigger, but it's really easy.
Yeah.
And the shipping isn't crazy because it's the weight that matters.
Exactly. Yep.
At least that's from what I remember. Maybe things have changed.
Well, and if you're looking at dimensions too, like dimensions will be part of it, but because it's only like an inch high, the actual like square inches of the box is not that big.
Yep.
When they get it, they're like, oh, this is an awkwardly shaped box. Dang it. But
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So that was it. That was our Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah. All right, back to the real episode.
I don't think I'll ever get tired of that. I think it's awesome. So, all right. So
thank you. Your alarm clock. I should make another one for you that goes off in the morning and then it tells you to like get up and get at it.
Hey, I got up later today, but I was up till 3 packing, so it's okay. To me, it's as long as you get your work done, but that's for another episode. All right. So thank you to all of you that sent your hustle of the week. Really appreciate it. Always be tagging us. Hopefully we'll get back to you. Things have been really busy lately. So, and I got to say, Instagram, their algorithm has been not hiding, but sometimes we'll get tagged and I don't notice it till days later.
Yeah.
I feel really bad. So we're not ignoring you. We just haven't seen it.
Yep.
So, all right. So the last part is how to execute, right? How do you make things happen? We've talked about this a lot, but you know, the thing is that one of the reasons I lost a ton of money this last go round of Q4 was I kept saying the price is going to rebound, and it never rebounded. So when things are hot, you got to sell. That's it. And even if it's not the price that you wanted, it's not like eBay where, you're waiting for the right buyer. These hot items may only be hot for 2 weeks, right? And let's go back to your Pomsey story. What was the problem with Pomseys last year? You bought a ton of Pomseys, and then what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I bought a ton of Pomseys because I was like, sure, these were going to be great. And they were nice because they were small, easy to ship. And probably a week later, go into Walmart, they literally had made an entire Pomsey aisle, not an end cap, but from one end of the aisle to the other end of the aisle was all Pomseys, different Pomseys. Yeah, I was like, well, I guess I should return them. Like, you can have some more Pomseys because these aren't going to sell.
Yeah, so he could have sold them for money maybe earlier. I don't know if those ever went up.
I don't know if they ever spiked. If they did, it probably wasn't enough of a spike to justify it unless you were selling them like a lot. But it was one of those things where I was even buying them because there was a limit on them. Like you couldn't, like we got a lot of them on
Which
Target.
Makes you think, oh, this is going to be a hot item.
Yeah, Target had a limit. It was like 5 per customer. So we had 3 different credit cards that we used. We had 3 different addresses that we were like, hey, can you, we're going to have these sent to you. If you buy them, we'll pay you. We had Pomseys sent to so many houses. I was going around collecting boxes of Pomseys. And then they were everywhere. Yep. So you never know.
So, and I had the same issue. There was another toy, which may be a hot item this year, but I'm not sure yet. But I had a ton of them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait. And then they restocked right after Black Friday. Yep. I think I sold them at a loss of $1 a piece. Should have sold them when they're hot. So you need, it's such a, I mean, you might be able to sell it in January, but you don't know. Like when the money's there, take that money and run.
Yeah. And I think it's important to distinguish what we're talking about here. And we're saying there's the items that have the specific hype, right? Where it's like, this is a hard to get item. Now there are other things that are popular during Q4 that are just going to be like bread and butter items that you can just keep at a consistent price all Q4, right? Where it's like these items they sell for a little more. You got them. They're going to sell. They'll sell into January. Hey, these are the type of items that come next year or maybe even throughout the year. They're not like hype items where it's like kids want them right now because they're really, really popular and they can't be found. We're talking like items that are always going to be popular. Like those things, yeah, hold out for. You might be able to get more. Don't race to the bottom on. But if it's like, this is a fad, like this is a craze that's really going on right now, that might be when you sell. And then the other side that gets a little scary with that is like, I think of, and again, this was probably, I don't know if there's things like this as much anymore, but I remember back in the day when like PlayStation 2 came out and it was like people waiting in line to get them. And those would go on auction and they would just keep getting higher and higher and higher value, like insane prices. And so those might be the times where it's like, you're not in a rush to sell because there's there's none, right? But when we're talking about toys like this, I feel like a lot of times stores keep restocking. They want to make money. So unless they totally messed up and did not make enough of them, chances are the store is going to get some more and it could tank.
Yeah. And the key thing too is you want to, as you're going, you want to keep your cash flow moving. Right? Because what can end up happening, and I shared this the last podcast, is I had a lot of debt. Do you remember I shared about that? And my credit score tanked. Now I'm back to where, in a good place. But what ended up happening is I should have been selling those items. Even though it wasn't where I wanted it to be, I could have used that money and I could have just bankrolled it and just kept buying more and more and more. So you want to keep your cash flow going. You don't want to buy a whole bunch of stuff and then you're stuck and you can't source anymore in Q4. Like that would be miserable.
Yeah, there's actually there was a while when I was like doing some research into Forex trading, right? And I don't really, again, not an expert on anything, so please do not take any advice
I don't know what that
Forex
is.
trading. Oh, you don't? We'll talk to you about it later.
Okay. Right.
But anyways, when you're doing Forex trading, you set limits of when you're going to buy and sell. And one of the problems that people have when they do that is psychologically, like it's proven time and time again, even the best traders will do this, is as it's going, they wait too long to sell and then they'll sell too early. And then when it's going to a dip, they'll let it keep going instead of doing a stop loss. And it's like, I'm going to lose money on all of this, but I'm going to take this loss because if it keeps going down more, I'm going to lose so much more. And so you almost have to switch your natural inclination. Our natural inclination is, as we're seeing money lose, to like want to hold on and say like, oh, I don't want to lose anymore. And like, it might come back up, but it's actually a lot of times better just to take that quick loss and then move on to something else so you can make some money. Whereas if you keep holding on, that, 20% loss on each item might turn into a 40% loss on each item, which might turn into a 60% loss on each item. So you got to be careful with that.
Yeah, agreed. It's a stop loss, right? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah. And for instance, there was, man, I can give you story upon stories, but you just got to be careful because, yeah, part of you think loss, but the longer you wait, you'll be losing more money and more money and more money. And, here's the other side. And this is something you need to be careful about too, is that stuff does sell in January and even into a little bit into February. And this is because everybody has gift cards, right? So it all depends on your comfort level. I will say, I don't think the hot toys sell for as much as they do in, right after Black Friday up until December 20. But there's other items that still will sell if you get them at the right price point. Let's say you don't sell them through during Q4, make sure you sell them through in January, right? And I would say make sure you sell them through. Now, you could be like Orlando and get a random Ryan's egg that gets returned to you from Amazon in October. That was kind of crazy. And I sold it for $160. I actually sold it for more this past October than during Q4, right? But chances that those kinds of items will rebound, it's not very much. Now, there are some items like those dolls that we were trying to sell. 2 years ago, those dolls, if you had one now, they're worth like $200.
Wow.
But you don't know that.
You don't know.
Right? So you have to act on the information that you have and make moves on what you know.
Yeah. And you almost have to, I almost think maybe, I don't even want to say good strategy because you've got to have money to do this. But like, let's say you buy 30 of the doll or whatever it is, and it doesn't work and you barely make money. You do stop loss, you return them or whatever your strategy is. Maybe keep one and put it away in the museum, right?
In your 401k museum,
your 401 closet. And if it ends up 5 years down the road still being junk, then sell it at a garage sale. I bought some they were My Generation dolls or something like that, right?
Okay.
And I got them on major clearance at Target, and they just never ended up selling on eBay. It was one of like my first buys, and I had like 6 of them, and I sold them at my garage sale right before I moved, and I sold them for about what I bought them for. So, like it was worth holding on to. I learned something from it, and you just never know. And what if that was the doll that 4 years down the road was like, this is so rare and it's worth a ton of money. So it might be worth keeping one. You might, kick yourself because you didn't keep more, but at least you could say like, hey, it paid off, right? Because for every one that pays off, you'll have 10 that don't. But it might end up making you break even, and it might be fun stories to tell.
The only one I will actually recommend that for is Legos. I have Legos that last year I thought were going to be like the hot Legos, and they never got hot. They just stayed constant. But they're in my 401k Lego closet.
It's just 401 closet.
Whatever. Okay. I call it what I want. Now, I do know that those Legos in 10 years are going to be worth a lot. So, and I do that sometimes. I hold on to stuff that I know will become more valuable. Except like the Lionel trains. I sold those because...
See, but even still, like it's still a hope that the Legos will be more valuable.
No, they will be. I mean...
But if that's the case, like if you know 100% for sure that it's going to go up percent, then you should just always be buying them and storing them. Because
people do that. And I do that. There are some sets that when they become discontinued, especially when it's one that...
So it's basically you're buying like a bond if it's 100%.
Yes. No, true. There's actually news stories that sometimes Legos holds better value than stocks. It's true. So, all right. Hey, so the key thing in all of this is don't wait. When things are hot and they're ready to sell, you got to sell them. You got to get that cash flow moving, or else you might end up tying your money in a bunch of items and not make any money and be stuck not being able to source during Q4. So, hey, being strategic during Q4 is very big. There's no greater time in the year to make money. So hopefully while this episode is dropping, you're listing items, you're sourcing items, you're finding ways to make it happen over these next 6 weeks. So make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have all your shipping supplies. Make sure you know what platforms you're going to be working with. Make sure you have your circle. And then make sure you're hustling to a point that works for you, according to Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, hey, make sure you execute and you make that money this Q4 to hopefully set yourself up for a good 2020. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.